Hi, I'm Margie Holmes, psychologist, author, and educator. Our topic today is something most of you have expressed interest in knowing more about, and that is asexuality. Some of you expressed doubts that people can actually be asexual. For example, Anonymous, I didn't even consider it as being applicable to humans, to worms maybe, but not to us. I think asexuality is still to some extent a form of repression that denies a person of their being human. To be human means to recognize all our drives, the need for sex included. To say that you don't need it may just mean that you are repressing it. I still believe that we are all driven by our urges, or at least feel those urges. One needs not act on these urges, but to claim that you don't have them at all, it's a load of crap. Maribeth BSS, I think a person is not born asexual. It may be brought about by some sad or bad experience with sex. Because once a person experiences sex with the person he or she loves and enjoys it, then one cannot be asexual. John Bueno, not needing sex? I find that hypocritical or funny. Everyone loves that for sure. If they say they don't, they probably are not getting any. Victorio Rudio, they probably have had traumatic experiences. Even priests and nuns have urges. Alfie Melia, I suppose people who are asexual should be people who are biologically deprived or lacking in any sexual feelings. Considering this, asexuality can be considered an abnormality. I find it hard to believe that a normally functioning human would not feel any sexual urge and the need to release this. Carlos Gonzalez, being asexual is like staying in the friend zone forever with either gender. Platonic relationship lang. That's it, Carlos. You hit the nail on the head, right? So, in addition to Carlos's definition, let's give you the scientific definition, which is asexuality is a sexual orientation. And as we know, sexual orientation has to do with who we are sexually attracted to. If your sexual orientation is heterosexual, you are attracted to people of the opposite sex. Homosexual, to people of the same sex. And bisexual, you are sexually attracted to people of both sexes. Now, when you're asexual, you are sexually attracted to no one, not any gender, male, female, hetero, homo, or bisexual. Okay, so Anonymous says, after having heard the scientific definition, I didn't know what it meant until now. I imagine it must be boring to not have any interest in sex. I think people imagine it is boring because what they are doing, again, is projecting. Just because they feel it is boring, then they think everyone will feel it is boring. It's sort of hard to understand for many people that another person may not need or want what we need or want. Plus, so many people have been brainwashed to think sex is the be-all and end-all of people. And here, finally, are the asexuals who do not think this way and do not feel any angst about it. They don't care if they have no date to the senior prom. They don't care if nobody loves them because they don't need reciprocation because to start with, they don't love anyone in that sexual way. I got so excited. Forgive me, I have to drink again. So please let us be aware, okay, that just because person A, for example, me, just because I cannot get my mind around the idea of not wanting and needing sex, if I projected, I would feel that nobody can ever want or need it. So Mary Ackmore shares, people can be taught to sublimate their lustful desires to activities that hyper-focus their minds or bodies to other things. That they can, you are right, Mary, but such people are not asexuals because they have to take effort. They have to be trained. But asexuals do not need to be trained. They are not sublimating. They are not saying, I'm so horny, but instead I'll paint like Picasso or something like that, just so that I won't think of sex. They just don't care about sex. They just naturally have no interest in sex. Now, these viewers shared these stories with us. Miradel Abellana, After I separated with my ex, isolated myself from sex out of fear and for being too emotionally attached to my sex partner. Nakaya ko yun for 6 years. But now, I think I have the right frame of mind to do it with the right man whom I think is worth it. Good for you, Maribel. Desiree season, being down in the dumps for months on a stretch, makes me asexual. It is a temporary thing though, because my sexual interest comes back, especially when the dark cloud has lifted. Yeah, and that is very natural. Mike _ Doria says, I have been celibate for over a year now, and I'm not the least bit bothered. I am reserving sex for the deserving one. If not, then forget it. So, Miradel, Desiree, and Mike, thank you for sharing your experiences and showing how understandable it can be to not want to have sex for a while or for a very long time. For example, Desiree, thank you for sharing what happens to you when you are clinically depressed, because sometimes it can last a long time. Not that I think it lasts a long time with you, okay? So there are people who are not interested in sex either naturally, like when you're clinically depressed, or because, you know, you want to reserve it for someone you really love, or because you were so hurt that you say, teka muna, let me get over, you know, what I'm feeling. Let me lick my wounds until I'm brave enough to face the world, have sex, and not be devastated in case there is a rejection, okay? So I appreciate your showing us and the viewers of Ask Margie this, okay? That the difference between yourself and asexuals for whom have no interest in sex is not temporary. You know, Mike and Desiree and Mirabel, their lack of interest in sex is temporary. But asexuals have a permanent interest in sex, a permanent non-interest in sex, at least in as far as therapy will change them, or witchcraft will change them, or love potions will change them. It will not. If you're madly in love with an asexual and think you can put a love potion in his coffee, it doesn't work. Okay? Now let's move on to your questions. Lito Asico asks, sino-sino ang mga taong ito? What I mean is, sila po ba ang mga taong may mataas na antas ng karunungan o mga taong walang pinag-aralan? Pwede silang maging mataas ang antas, walang pinag-aralan, or anything in between, Lito. Ang pagiging asexual ay walang kinalaman sa yaman, sa dunong, o sa kagandahan. Ang isang bagay lang na naghihiwalay ng asexual sa hindi asexual ay na ang una ay walang interes sa sex at ang ikalawa, yung hindi asexual, ay merong interes. Jose Malvar, if we define sexuality to encompass gender identity and sexual preference, part po ba ng definition of an asexual yung gender that he or she identifies as? Or is it purely a lack of sexual preference ang asexuality? Jose, thank you for distinguishing between the two of these things, no? At Jose, hindi gender ang issue nila. Ang issue nila, what asexuals are fighting for, and by the way, there are so many groups of asexuals, and their sole requirement is to be a member. Their sole requirement is that you do not need sex for yourself, okay? So, what asexuals are fighting for is recognition that asexuality is as valid a sexual orientation as homosexuality, heterosexuality, etc. To be attracted to someone of your own sex, the opposite sex, both sexes is recognized. Why should not being attracted to anyone, or why is being sexually attracted to no one invalid, you know? Or to define it in equal terms, an asexual is someone who is not sexually attracted to anyone of the same or of the opposite sex. You know, I think we can get into the idea of sex being binary or more. But maybe in another show, and thanks talaga for accepting that asexual exists, we can talk about this. Is sex binary? Is it fluid? Etc., etc. Lil Dakit says, I imagine it must be boring to not have interest in sex. Pero paano yung romantic relationship nila? Natural yung sexual arousal with someone you love. So, do they make love? If they do, how do they do it kung walang interest sa sex? I am so happy that you mentioned romance, Lick. Asexuals have no problem with romance. They like moonlight and roses, music and dancing. The only thing they have problems with are people who insist that it isn't natural to feel the way you feel. You know, asexuals are open to romance the way other people are. They are even open to other people liking, loving, and wanting sex. All they want is you do not judge them by your own standards. All they want is for you to accept them as they are, as people who are just not interested in sex. Finally, Lamig Hangin asks, what do you do when you fall hard in love with an asexual? So if you let me be corny and talk about cliche, which is that make the distinction about people who fall in love and people who love. Remember, if you mean loving, truly loving, which includes not only tolerating but actually reveling on who the person is, then fine. However, most people consider falling in love a different experience. Again, falling in love is moonlight and roses, candy and jewelry, which are fantastic and possible and okay with asexuals. Just loving a person. As I say, they can have romance. But they can also have the Mills and Boone kind of romance, which focuses on tender affection, but is friend zone lang. Now, they do not focus on porn, which focuses as well on sex. And if your asexual partner or crush loves you just as much as you love him, well, he too will find a way to accommodate your needs and desires. And how you can accommodate each other's desires and needs without either of you feeling put upon, without either of you feeling agraviado, will be a testament of not only your great love for each other, but also to your creativity and imagination. I think what one can say about asexuals is this idea is not true for them. You've heard that saying, different strokes for different folks. I think it's even a song. With asexuals, you know, you don't need any stroking. At least you don't need any stroking from some sexual partner. You know, I think if you say asexuals don't like sex simply because they haven't fallen in love, well, this is just as, if you pardon me, as idiotic a concept as saying lesbians are lesbians only because they haven't found the right man. You know, to think of them as just having not found a person that they really love or fall in love with, it's really being rather judgmental of their sexual orientation. Well, that's it for today. Keep your questions, comments, and suggestions for future episodes coming. Please send them to me on Facebook. Tweet using the hashtag AskMargie or send an email to askmargie@rappler.com. See you next week.